If I was to ask you what the average UK first-time buyer thought they would need for a house deposit, would you say 20%? Because on average, that is the standard that people think they need to either invest in a property or buy their first home. But this information isn't necessarily true, and today's podcast is all about how much deposit you actually need as a first-time buyer and as a first-time investor to purchase a property. Welcome to the Property Legacy Podcast. I'm your host, Alice Potter, joined by my co-host, Steve Potter, and we are back for season 3. And we're back in this green room.
We are. Yeah, so season 3, it's 2025, and it's a whole new year, a whole new us. Well, but yeah, we're here ready for season 3, and we're going to do more education, more shoots out, visiting property investors in the Northwest and maybe further afield. And we're also going to be talking about all the different things that we get involved with and all the different things that help to get you one step closer to being a property investor.
And most importantly, we're going to be answering all of your questions. So one of the things that we found since launching the podcast over 2024 is the amount of questions that we get. So questions are great because it gives us content and things to create content around. So a big one, how much deposit do you need? We are going to break this down today.
So for many first-time buyers, whether it's their home or whether it's their first property investment, feel that they need to save up a huge amount of money. And obviously, if you're living in the centre of London or if you're living in the southeast, that's going to be quite a considerable amount. But the percentage is still going to be the same wherever you are in the country. Now, there are some mortgage providers that offer a range of deposit requirements for first-time buyers. This can be as low as 5%, or under some circumstances, if we remember talking to Mark Millsap last year, that you could actually get a 100% bridging loan and then refinance it afterwards. So there are ways to get a property with no deposit or a small deposit. Obviously, if you're operating in an area where house prices are less than £100,000, that's going to be a lot easier.
Yes.
If you're operating in areas of the country, in Manchester area, Birmingham area, some areas of London and Cheshire and all those kind of expensive places, you're going to need a lot more, even if it is 5%.
And one question I had is, and I see it every couple of years, they bring back these like 0% or 1% mortgages.
Yeah.
How often do those types of things crop up?
Usually when the banks are struggling to sell mortgages.
Okay.
Or they're trying to increase the number of house sales. So as the market is low now in January 2025, there will be more incentives for mortgage companies to incentivize everybody to get more mortgages.
Okay.
Because if they don't have people taking money out, then they're not earning money. So at the moment, interest rates just dropped in the last quarter of 2024, which will help to start the revitalization of the market. But in some areas that won't make a difference for a number of months, even a year. Obviously in areas where it's generally a stronger investment, so city centres, those types of areas, you will get it bouncing back a lot quicker. Government have hit their target for inflation, so it's less than 2%, which is great. So that might now allow the Bank of England to start bringing the interest rates down so that it stops inflation completely bottoming out. Because whatever happens, if you put your interest rates down, inflation will go up. And then if you put your interest rates up, inflation comes down. So it's a balancing act. And they may drop it, the interest rate, and as a result of that, over the next 4 or 5 years, the inflation may go up again.
Okay.
Hopefully not as high as 10% like we had, but it may do that. And they may do that just to get the market going again.
Okay.
Obviously, from a mortgage company point of view, generally 80% loan to value and 20% deposits are quite the norm, but it's not going to help people like first time buyers because trying to get £20,000 for a £100,000 property is going to be difficult, especially if you're renting.
Yeah.
High rental rates, it's going to be difficult then to get extra money to do that.
Yeah, because I mean, people from my generation, so mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s now, there seems to be this thing of people have either bought their first home or it is a massive renting generation because of how much everything costs. And a lot of people, they're paying so much rent and utilities and all of that, that actually being able to save money for a deposit for a mortgage is so out of reach and impossible for them to achieve, especially if you are thinking about it being 20%. But what not a lot of people obviously don't realise is there are certain things that are out there. There are scenarios where it could be as little as 10 or 5%, and that could actually make a massive difference for if you're planning for the future and planning your finances and stuff. To think, especially when we get into a new year, everyone wants to make plans and plans for the future. So I think, you know, it's knowing the right information than just thinking it's that standard 20%. So talking about house deposits and first time buyers, can you explain a little bit about Help to Buy ISAs?
Yeah.
Because from my knowledge, you put money in, it's not money that you can get your hands on until you are purchasing a house. But how do they actually work?
Okay, so an ISA is just a investing product, a savings account that stops you from taking your money out for a period of time or to an actual point, and in exchange you get a higher rate of interest. So in some circumstances you can get 5% or even 5.5% ISA. What they're doing with the Help to Buy is the government will either match or actually put in more money than you will. So over time you can then develop this fund, which will then be your deposit.
Okay.
But it has to go towards your first purchase, and it has to be done in a certain manner. So you can put your money in every month. You can have a direct debit or manual payment. It doesn't really matter, and the government will do their stuff behind the scenes, and you will see that will grow over time. Obviously, depending how quickly you save up, depends how quickly it increases to the point that you could then go and buy a property. It's not going to be fast.
Yeah, because what happens if someone puts like £2,000 in a Help to Buy ISA? Will that automatically be matched straight away?
It'll be matched within the terms, but you're going to need more than that generally. In majority of the UK, you'll need more than that, even for a 5% deposit.
So with ISAs, is it better to put money in little and often instead of putting it in as lump sum?
It's always a good idea to have like an ISA. Don't have a normal savings account, but because you only get 2% or 3% or whatever, you won't get much. And then if inflation goes up, then that gets swallowed. Get used to putting money into ISAs so that you have a fund building over time, and then it becomes natural that you put that amount away.
Yeah.
The more you do that, the better. So if you get an increase of your income, or a wage rise, or anything happens that way, and you just keep putting that percentage away, then you'll automatically keep increasing as you go. Obviously, savings and ISAs are a very slow product, but you know exactly where you are, you know exactly what you're going to do, and what point at which you can then take that out. The only other thing to think about is if house prices increase dramatically, then you may never get to the point where you're going to be putting enough for a deposit.
Right.
But at least you'll have that lump sum to go towards a deposit, and then you might be able to go and get a loan off a parent or a loan off somebody to help you get over the line.
And at what point can you take that money out of an ISA?
It has to be linked through a purchase.
Okay.
So it'll have to be done at the point at which you complete, and it'll all be handled with your solicitors and all that kind of stuff. So it's not something where you'll go go to the bank, draw the money out, and have a few grand in your hand, and then go and put it in, because they've had to ring fence it to make sure that people don't just take the money out and spend it on a holiday, because then the government will be sending everybody on holidays, and it's not allowed.
Yeah.
So it's things like that that they've got ring fenced in and guidelines for this particular product. But if you just get a normal ISA, you could still do that as well.
And can you use a Help by ISA for an investment property, or does it have to be a property you live in?
No, it's for your first time for you to live in.
Okay.
So it's like a home buyer type scenario.
And you wouldn't be able to convert that into a buy-to-let mortgage?
Eventually down the line, you possibly could, but you're not then allowed to live in the property if you've got a buy-to-let mortgage.
No.
Because that's the stipulations that your mortgage company would have. So you could buy it, your first one, and then if the equity built up and you remortgaged and then allowed that equity would be a deposit for another property, then yes, you could do that. Or you could move on to that new property and rent the first one out, but you still have to get the right mortgages for the right product.
Okay. So, in your opinion, how much deposit do you actually need to buy a home?
Okay. So there's two different things. So if it's your home and you're going to live there, then you need roughly about 5%, maybe 10%, depending on the what kind of mortgage you can get, because you can apply for a mortgage for a 5%, but you might not get a 5% mortgage. So you need to make sure that your financial background supports you to get to that point. If it's a investment property, then and you get the buy-to-let mortgage, then you will have to have a minimum of 25%.
Okay.
But you can then look into gifts, for vendor gifts, and you can look into help to buy through parents and things like that, where you could actually get somebody to pay that deposit and get you on the ladder.
Yeah, and as well, especially if you're working with investors and they're putting a certain amount of money towards it, then...
Yeah, or if they're putting all of it in, then you're golden, aren't you? You don't need a deposit.
No.
If you're doing a bridging loan for 6 months, then you don't need a deposit. So it just depends on what you're doing, but generally, the rule is, if you're going for your home that you're going to live in, generally go for a 5% repayment mortgage, and those products are available, and probably will be available for a long period of time.
Okay. So obviously, for anyone that's watching, if you're considering where to go for more advice surrounding this, then a mortgage advisor would be probably the best next step, and they'll be able to help you decide what, to help you understand what's out there for you, what actually you need to raise, especially when it comes to your own personal financial scenario. Everybody is different.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously we're just wanting to clear up wrongful information. I think the majority of the time is we see stuff on the news and see stuff on the internet, we presume it's true. So in general, what do you think is the biggest kind of takeaway for anybody that's listening to this?
Well, first of all, if you're going to look for a property for yourself or a property to invest in, one of your first things you need to do is check your credit file. Also then go and speak to your mortgage company or mortgage broker, and they will help you then, using that credit file, will then be able to give you the options of what are available to you with your financial background. And everybody is different. It doesn't matter where you are today, but it does matter at what the point you go for a mortgage, you need to kind of work towards it. So it might be that you need to put a plan together to build your credit history to a point where you get better options.
Yeah.
So go to My Credit File and get a downloaded credit history of yourself, and then go and speak to a number of brokers and see what they suggest, and also make sure you know what they're going to charge you for it, because everybody's different again.
And if you do ever have any burning questions for us, Steve does go live every Monday on our LinkedIn, YouTube and Facebook channels for a Q&A at 7 p.m. So you can always tune in. He'll be there to answer any questions, and any questions that we do get will help go towards any podcast that we film, because we obviously go into them in a lot more detail.
Yes.
using this as an example. So make sure if you have any questions, if anything comes up when you are listening to Property Legacy Podcast, we are here to answer your questions once a week on a live as well.
So that's it for today. It's quite short and sweet, but I hope we feel that we're answering the burning questions of the UK. So if you like what you hear, obviously subscribe, tick the bell so that you get notified, and like our videos, just so that the YouTube gods will actually take notice of us and push it out to other people. We are growing. We've nearly got 1,000 views.
Hopefully by the time we post this, we have 1,000 views.
Yeah, so it's all going well. We are getting subscribers as well, but 18% of our audience are subscribers, so there's a lot more out there that need to subscribe.
Yes.
Obviously, if you're a subscriber, you don't miss out on anything, but if you want to find us elsewhere, then look for us on Facebook, on Instagram and TikTok. All the information for that will be in the description below. Don't forget our free books that are down there as well. Download today, How to Invest in Property with No Cash.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, and we will see you for the next one.
Bye.
Bye.